was pretty spectacular for us watching, the range of emotions. Perhaps you figured in the end it was going to be second, and then that happened with JR. And secondly, we're smiling about your contract expiring at midnight, but certainly what does this do to the possibilities and the potential here going forward?
That's one for the owners, but I had to win because of the conversation we had when I was just landed in St. Pete. But it's, you know, it's, I kind of forgot what the question was. you know why, right?
Because I was just asking you your emotions on the last lap, and the way it went down, it was...
I didn't have any. You know, right up until the point that I passed JR, I didn't. I was so focused, and it was one of those races where it was so competitive that you had to be on your game, and the wind seemed to be getting under the front of my car if I wasn't on the same line every time at turn 3, and I would have to lift, and I was catching beer and didn't want to lift, so I had to position that, and I wasn't focused, you know, on what was going on in front. And then I had to run on her through turn 3 and 4, and pulled out. And then, you know, when I saw him crash, I mean, I knew it wasn't serious. And as soon as I knew it was not serious, there was a little smile on my face, I will say. And it was just, you know, from that point, just making sure that I didn't do anything silly. And then I think, got on the radio and started crying, which was. I'm not normally that emotional, but you know, having been through what we've been through and being able to deliver this for everybody is certainly very gratifying, and just, you know, proud of everybody. But in terms of, you know, what it will do for the future, it will make me a happier person on the beach. And then in terms of more races, you'll have to ask these guys.
Dan, it was mentioned several times during the race by the commentator that you didn't have a full-time IndyCar ride. In case you didn't get a chance to drive here, did you have any other possibility in other categories, championship? And a question to the two owners. Obviously now winning the Indy 500, you have to carry on for the rest of the year. I think you're working on it. Can you give me your idea about your master plan, what you have for the rest of the year?
Is there a master plan?
It's, you know, it was one of those off seasons where I did believe that I was going to get a full-time ride, and you know, I had that confidence. But you know, comes the end of January, the things hadn't panned out as I expected, and you know, my management have got me in a position where I can be more selective, and I don't have to drive. You know, it was important for me to put myself in a very positive situation, and I think when I called Brian to ask him about something else, and you know, we happened to talk about Indianapolis, and I mentioned that I had a couple of options, if I believe, and asked his advice on that. And at that point, I think he said, "Would you be interested in perhaps, you know, running for me?" And you know, I think Brian went and made a couple of calls, and you know, I said to him that, you know, it's obviously very important for me to feature very strongly. And I'm not just saying this because Brian's sitting next to me, and I think anybody that knows Brian will say this. He's a rarity in IndyCar racing. He's a man of his word, and he's provided me an opportunity. When he said that he would give me a fast race car, I never doubted that. And we pretty much wrapped the contract up soon after the conversation, and started working on this program with him and Steve. And you know, I just knew if Brian said it was going to be a good deal, it would be a good deal. And like I say, you can see by the people that him and Steve have been able to put together why he is the person he is. I mean, they're a great group of people. It's not really like a partial program, it's like a full-time program with just one race, because of the talent within the team, and that shouldn't be underestimated by anybody. It's not like we kind of just scrapped this crew together. There's some quality individuals there. You know, certainly some people that I think are the best I've ever worked with. And you know, I've got to say as well, the engineer that Brian selected to work for, you know, his team has done an incredible job. You know, it's very difficult. Steve picked him, sorry. So credit to Steve. I take that back, Brian doesn't get any credit. But to integrate so well with another team is obviously very important, and they did a great job at that.
Up here.
Dan, you're obviously ecstatic about winning your second Indianapolis 500, but put yourself in JR's shoes for a second. You know, how much sympathy can you have for the situation he ended up being in? Is that something that could have happened to anyone?
Yeah, you can here. I mean, you see, that's what's great about Indianapolis, and it's bad if you're on the receiving end. I mean, it's happened to me here in 2006. I dominated the race, and I got a flat tire with about 20 laps to go. And then Chip and I argued for a lap about if it was flat or not, and that cost us more time. Which, if anybody knows Chip and me, I'm sure you could see that happening. But it's, you know, it's obviously unfortunate, but you know, it's Indianapolis. It just can bite you. Actually, a couple of times on that last 20 laps, I was trying to get through turn 2 quickly. Behind a couple of cars, and I had a couple of loose moments, and then I was actually forced really close to the wall by Kanaan. So you know, you just have hairy moments out there, and it's part of it. But you know, that's why this is the greatest spectacle in racing. You just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, Dan, back here. Hi. This has been a month of the little guys, and I was wondering if you had an opinion of why this month turned out that way. And you've been a big guy, and in particular, the underperformance of the Penske's.
Well, I mean, when you say a little guy, I think, and Brian and Steve could probably correct me on this, but I'm sure they're spending a lot of money on this race. So, yeah, we are a small program, but with the sponsors that we've had, we've been able to put together a great program, and I can't thank William Rast enough, especially. I mean, not only was the car fast, it was a good-looking car, and I have an excuse to wear jeans to the banquet tomorrow, so that's perfect. But it's, you know, somebody asked me this last night, and I think the biggest thing is with Indianapolis, you know, the partial programs. I mean, well, it is a partial program, but again, the talent is there. But what it allows you to do at Indianapolis is you have more track time. So you know, the simulation programs that the big teams work on, you know, the fine tuning, the wind tunnel stuff, the shaker rigs. I mean, that's all well and good, but it allows the smaller programs the track time to be able to catch up a little bit. And you know, like I said, I don't think Brian will say and Steve will say it's a partial program in terms of spending, because I know they didn't partially spend; they were spending like it was going out of fashion. But it's, I think it's all worth it. But I think as well that the quality of drivers in some of the partial programs. You look at people like Buddy Rice, you know, Townsend Bell. You know, there's a lot of talent, so it's been an incredible 500. I would never have thought coming here that 2 Andretti Autosport cars would be bumped, and you know, I know Michael and think Michael does a phenomenal job, and I guarantee you that won't happen next year.
Dan, in your career, have you ever raced a wrecked car to the finish line before or seen it happen?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. So no, probably not. I wasn't really racing. I mean, it was hard for him to keep up with me when he's got 2 wheels on his wagon.
This question's for both of you. Just, you guys have been through a lot together, from being teammates on one of the biggest teams in the series to winning the greatest spectacle in racing with a one-off team. Through all of that, how has kind of your friendship and your bond kind of evolved and endured through that, and where does this rank in all those things?
Well, Danny boy?
Who said we were friends?
He's sacking me at midnight tonight. Dan, when Dan came to Andretti, or actually when I came to Andretti, Dan was already there, but he was the kid, the rook, and I was actually came in kind of the old guy, the experienced guy, and then we had TK, and then obviously when Dario came back after he'd been hurt, and it became kind of the 4 musketeers, and we had a lot of fun together on and off the track, and we had an opportunity to have the 4 of us got together for dinner earlier about a week ago, and literally laughed till our sides hurt, just reminiscing about those times. And so there was a bond that formed between the four of us during those years that will never change. And it wasn't the reason that I brought Dan to the team or asked him to drive for us. It wasn't because he's my buddy. It's because he's flat out the best guy that I think there is around this place, and that was the reason why we hired Dan Wheldon. And so our friendship is our friendship, and that will never change. But obviously, you know, this has been another bonding experience, and I think it'll just, you know, serves to bring us closer someday when we're old guys laying on the beach. We can still talk about this.
You got, I'm sorry, I just want to make this, we got one more question after this. We've been asked to wrap it up, so finishing this one, I'm right there, and I apologize for those questions.
No, I mean, I agree with Brian. He's been a great friend and always has been. And when you know, he was the guy that, you know, so with him being my boss now, it's not different, because the amount of respect that, you know, I think Dario, myself, and Tony always had for him. He was the unsung hero at Andretti Green. He was doing a lot of development for us and allowing us to, you know, go win races. When he was allowed to race, normally he kicked our butt, so it was quite nice when they put him back to work again. But it's, you know, what I like about Brian is just his, you know, his honesty, and I think you can see that he has this way of creating a good atmosphere, which he probably doesn't even know that he does. But it's one of those that's fun to be in. It's you know, he knows when you have to work, but it's a pleasure to drive for somebody like these two guys sitting up here, because you know, they do create a good environment, but they're very dedicated to winning this. You know, one thing I'll tell you about this guy is, you know, he will not do anything that doesn't, or that's not going to be successful. If it's not going to be successful, he will have no part of it whatsoever. And that's a true talent. And I think, like you say, when you look at the people that are working in the organisation, you can see that too.